Come with me to the Great American State Fair in Washington, D.C.
So I'm here today at the Great American State Fair, and behind me you can see Secretary back here at the Great American State Fair. It's the last day, and the U.S. Army.
What's the healthiest thing you can eat at an American state fair? Apparently, the answer is nothing. At least, that's the impression you might get after watching British tourists walk around one. Because at an American fair, if you can put it on a stick, deep fry it, cover it in sugar, or turn it into a 1,200-calorie snack, somebody has probably already done it. Fried Oreos, fried pickles, fried cheesecake, fried butter, even fried pizza. One British visitor basically looked at the food and seemed to think, "Mate, what have you people done to the concept of dinner?" But here's the funny thing. The food wasn't actually the biggest surprise. For British tourists, the real shock was discovering just how big, loud, strange, friendly, competitive, and unapologetically American a state fair could be. And in 2026, that's happening on a massive scale. A nationwide 2026 fair season study estimates roughly 2,100 fairs and festivals take place across America in July alone. And here's the crazy part. There is apparently a fair or festival happening somewhere in America every weekend of the year. So this isn't some tiny American tradition that only happens in a few places. For millions of Americans, fairs are part of everyday local culture. And that's exactly what these British visitors were about to discover. They arrived expecting something familiar. Britain has fairs too. There are rides, there are games, there is food, there are traveling carnivals. So they thought they knew what they were walking into. Then they saw the size of the place. One British tourist admitted she had definitely underestimated how big the fair was. Another compared the scale to London's Christmas crowds and basically said Britain simply didn't have anything quite like it. And suddenly, this wasn't a little afternoon at the fair, it was an all-day operation. Some visitors were walking nearly 20,000 steps just trying to see everything. And then came the rides. Massive carnival attractions, Ferris wheels towering above the grounds, roller coasters, spinning rides, drop towers, lights, music, screaming, and the kind of ride where a British tourist looks at the camera and basically says, "This goes upside down? Oh, absolutely, let's do it." That's another thing that surprised them. The American fair wasn't just something to watch, it was something to participate in. You played the games, you competed for giant stuffed animals, you screamed on the rides, you tried food you've never seen before, and sometimes you spent way more money you planned trying to win a stuffed toy. Another compared the scale to London's Christmas crowds and basically said Britain simply didn't have anything quite like it. And suddenly, this wasn't a little afternoon at the fair, it was an all-day operation. Some visitors were walking nearly 20,000 steps just trying to see everything. And then came the rides. Massive carnival attractions, Ferris wheels towering above the grounds, roller coasters, spinning rides, drop towers, lights, music, screaming, and the kind of ride where a British tourist looks at the camera and basically says, "This goes upside down? Oh, absolutely, let's do it." That's another thing that surprised them. The American fair wasn't just something to watch, it was something to participate in. You played the games, you competed for giant stuffed animals, you screamed on the rides, you tried food you've never seen before, and sometimes you spent way more money you planned trying to win a stuffed toy. One family in the footage literally watched their game spending climb towards $70 because they were determined to win a giant prize. That's the American spirit right there. We may not need this giant teddy bear, but now we're getting it. Then there were the animals. And this is where the British visitors started realizing that a state fair wasn't simply an amusement park. There were horses, cows, pigs, sheep, rabbits, baby goats, livestock competitions, dog shows, pig races, agricultural exhibitions, even rodeo events. One British visitor was genuinely fascinated by the agricultural side of the Ohio State Fair. She realized that farming and agriculture weren't just some background activity, they were a huge part of the event and a major part of American life. The fair was bringing together entertainment, agriculture, local businesses, families, competition, and tradition all in one place. And then, of course, there was the food. This is where America really decided to show off. The British visitors tried corn dogs, turkey legs, funnel cakes, lemonade, fried pickles, fried Oreos, fried cheesecake, cheese curds, fried green beans, deep-fried tacos, and even fried butter. One tourist asked the obvious question: what's the healthiest thing you can get at a fair? The answer seemed pretty simple: nothing. But that's also the joke. You don't go to a state fair because you're trying to have a quiet salad. You go because you're willing to say, you know what? I've never eaten a deep-fried Oreo before. Let's see what happens. And quite a few British visitors actually loved it. One described the fried Oreo as gooey and delicious. Another basically gave it a 10 out of 10. So maybe America wasn't completely crazy after all. Maybe it was just deliciously irresponsible. And then there was the sheer size. The State Fair of Texas alone attracted more than 2 million visitors in 2025, while its 3-year average attendance is over 2.2 million. The Minnesota State Fair attracted nearly 1.94 million visitors in 2025, and Iowa State Fair regularly attracts more than 1 million people. That's not just a fair, that's basically a temporary city. But perhaps the best way to understand an American state fair comes from a photographer, Arthur Grace, who spent years photographing fairs across the country. He described the state fair as a microcosm of America. And honestly, that's exactly what these British tourists were seeing. A little bit of everything: food, farming, families, music, competition, business, tradition, entertainment, local pride, and a whole lot of people having a ridiculously good time. Even Ronald Reagan once described a state fair as one of the best ways to experience the true America. And suddenly, the British reactions make more sense. They weren't just discovering fried food, they were discovering a different way Americans celebrate community. Because you can visit Times Square, you can see Hollywood, you can walk through Disneyland. But those places are built for visitors. A state fair is different. It's America showing itself to America. It's families coming back year after year. It's farmers showing their animals, kids trying to win prizes, friends riding terrifying rides, neighbors meeting up, locals showing off their food, and communities celebrating traditions they've been carrying for generations. That's why the British tourists didn't just leave talking about the rides. They talked about the atmosphere, the people, the animals, the food, the scale, and how unexpectedly fun the whole thing was. One British visitor summed it up perfectly. Britain has fairs too, but not on this scale. And maybe that's the real American fair experience. It's not necessarily bigger because America's trying to impress you. It's bigger because Americans have taken something simple, a local fair, and turned it into an entire day of food, entertainment, agriculture, competition, and community. So the next time a British tourist walks through those gates thinking, it's just a fair, America might have a very simple answer. Buddy, you ain't seen nothing yet. And that's what makes the American state fairs so fascinating. To an American, it might just be something you do every summer. To a British visitor, it can feel like stepping into a completely different version of America. And sometimes, that's where the most interesting cultural discoveries happen. Not at the famous landmarks, but somewhere under the Ferris wheel, surrounded by fried Oreos, livestock, screaming teenagers, country music, giant prizes, and a whole lot of Americans having a very good time. If you enjoyed seeing America through European eyes, make sure you subscribe, because there are plenty more American surprises waiting around the corner.